Hi everyone, my name is Nancy, and I want to tell you how I got trapped in the apartment of a psychopath who was in love with me, and I was locked up in his bedroom. Worst of all, this psychopath was my stepbrother. I have to say that Dave had been acting strangely since the first day we met. I was 15 back then. My mother had been alone for a long time, and I had never even spoken to my father because he left us. So I was really happy when my mum had a new boyfriend, and I was even more pleased when my mother introduced us. He was a very nice man, and he treated me well, even though my mother already had a pretty adult child. Then I found out that he had a son himself. Dave was 19, and he was ready to go to college. After their wedding, we moved in to live with them, and soon I began to have problems with my relationship with my stepbrother. It's hard to describe. He was just weird. Sometimes I'd notice him staring at me when I was washing dishes or just reading a book in the living room, and every time I'd catch his eye, he'd run away, fast. I was too shy to ask him what was going on. After all, I might have just been imagining it. But one night I realised he was legitimately crazy because he scared me to death. I was awakened by a rustling. I thought it was Daisy again, our cat. She was probably scratching at the door for me to let her in. So I started to get out of bed, but as soon as I opened my eyes, I wanted to scream in fear. It was Dave, and he was sitting in my room, staring at me. It was too much. I wanted to scream for my mum, but he said he just wanted to talk to me. Dave had fallen in love with me, and that's why he was acting weird. Then I told him that we couldn't have anything because I didn't feel the same way, plus we were step-siblings after all. But that didn't stop him, and he began to lean over me to kiss me. At that moment I started screaming, and soon our parents came to the room. Oh, imagine how strange it looked in their eyes. Thank God it was over, and my stepfather took Dave away for a serious conversation. After that, I stopped all contact with him and avoided him in every possible way. Luckily, our cohabitation didn't last long, because after a month, Dave moved to another city to go to college. From that moment on, my life was calm and beautiful, and I didn't even notice that 4 years had passed, and I had to choose a college for myself. So I moved to another city too. I really liked student life. Everything was perfect, except for one thing. The dorms were too crowded, and I had to rent a room outside of them. Since I didn't have much money, this room wasn't in the best neighbourhood, and sometimes I was a little scared on the way home. But nothing happened to me in 2 years, and I was lucky that I had never had to use my pepper spray. But my quiet existence was suddenly shaken up. I was in classes, and our group had gathered together to be introduced to our new teacher. From what I'd heard, he had just finished graduate school, and he got assigned here. My friends and I were already dreaming about a young, handsome guy, and giggled quietly. But then the dean asked everyone to say hi to Mr. Dave Morgan. What the hell? I hadn't expected that at all. I hoped that our paths in life had parted forever and we would never have to make contact again. But now he was my teacher, and I didn't know what to expect from him, and my fears totally came true. At first he lectured as if nothing had happened and pretended to not notice me. But one day he asked me to stay after class. When we were alone, he started that old conversation again. Dave was still in love with me, and he asked me out for coffee. I reacted very sharply and refused, and after that I started having problems. Literally, during the first seminar, he just destroyed me. I was doing a presentation in front of the whole group, and after that, he just started bombing me with questions and ruined my whole presentation. Besides getting an F, I felt totally humiliated. I was an excellent student, and I knew the subject really well, but he had made me look like some dumb loser. This went on for several months, until it was time for the semester exams. At that moment, he called me to his office. As you probably understand, nothing good was going to happen there. This time he told me straight. I had to agree to go out with him, or he would fail me on the exam, and I would be thrown out of college. I didn't want to put up with it this time, so I told him to back off and ran out of his office. Of course, I wasn't going to just stay quiet, so I went to the dean of the faculty and I told him everything. I had a perfect academic record in every subject except for history, which was taught by my stepbrother. So the dean believed that Dave was biased against me, and when he found out that Mr. Morgan was harassing me, he was immediately suspended. I breathed a sigh of relief. Everything should have been all right at that point. But that night, I nearly died of fright. I stayed at the library until late and headed home in the dark. Everything was okay as I walked around campus, but then I walked into my dark neighborhood. At first I thought I was imagining things, but then I definitely started hearing footsteps behind me. In fear, I quickened my pace. Soon I reached the entrance of my house and began frantically searching for my keys in my bag. Then I heard a man's voice. This stranger was asking what a beautiful girl like me was doing alone at such a late hour. I turned around and saw a huge man approaching me. I quickly pulled out my mace and was about to spray it in the face, but the button jammed and I was left with nothing. Then I just closed my eyes in fear and prepared for the worst. Suddenly I heard another voice. He was coming from far away and shouting at this stranger. This big man was obviously afraid of witnesses and quickly ran away. Thank God I was saved. And my saviour was, who would have guessed it, Dave. He said he wanted to apologise to me for the way he had been acting lately. It was just that when he saw me after all these years, all the old feelings came back to him, but now he was ashamed of what he had done. I slowly began to calm down. I have to say, I was very grateful to Dave for saving me. Who knows what that scary man was planning to do with me? So when Dave asked me to come over, I said yes. Of course, I remembered that he had harassed me years ago, but to refuse him a friendly visit now would have just been rude. In addition, he just wanted to talk about our parents, because he hadn't seen them for a long time and missed them very much. So we went to his place. He had a pretty decent apartment just off campus. We sat in the living room and Dave made tea. Everything was fine. We talked about our parents and how much I enjoyed college life. Suddenly our conversation was interrupted by a phone call. Someone called Dave at this late hour. He said it was urgent and went to talk in the kitchen. At this time, I wanted to take a closer look at his apartment, and while I was looking at his desk, I overheard part of his conversation. I heard phrases like, "Yeah, you did everything great. It worked out. I'll bring you the money tomorrow." At that moment, I realised what was really happening. Dave set this up. He wanted to look like a hero in my eyes, so he hired some guy to scare me to death. And now I was trapped in his apartment. Damn it, damn it, damn it! I had to get out of there fast, but the front door was locked. So then I rushed into the bedroom and locked myself in there. Dave knew I'd figured everything out, so he started knocking on the door and telling me to come out. I started looking around the room for something to help me escape. And then I saw a strange thing in the corner of the room. It was something like an altar. There were my Instagram pictures, copies of my childhood photos. He must have made them when we were living together. But the strangest thing was that in the middle there was a picture of my best friend hugging me, only instead of my friend's face, it was Dave's. No, he was definitely crazy. I had to figure out how to get out, and fast. I tried to barricade the door to buy some time for myself, and then I opened the window and saw the fire escape there. It was my salvation. When I climbed out the window, Dave had already opened the door and he started yelling at me to stop. But I was already running down the stairs. The stairs ended on the second floor and I had to jump down. It hurt, and I think I twisted my ankle. Despite the pain, I ran in a random direction and screamed for help. Soon I met some people who were walking by. Man, I was really lucky to even see people at such a late hour. I told them everything, and they called the police. And it was only when the officers arrived that I was finally able to calm down. After what Dave did, he was issued with a court order that forbid him from approaching me. He was also kicked off our college campus and stripped of his teaching license. In fact, he's lucky he didn't go to jail after that. Anyway, I was safe. I have to say that my parents discouraged me from suing Dave. I can understand them. He was my stepbrother after all. But he had to be punished. Maybe if his dad hadn't just talked to him 5 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. Dave clearly needed the help of a psychologist, and I hope this story will help him to understand that.